All right. So I think we are live. Thanks everyone for joining another episode of the OpenJS Foundation's Cross-Project Council meeting. Today is the 5th of September in the year 2023. And we've got, a bunch of stuff here on the agenda. But before we get into that, do we have any announcements? Anything? No? All right. Then we will carry on. Next up, is there anything to share from the board? I think the meeting was a couple of weeks ago, right? So nothing happening there. Okay.
Nothing new.
Okay. Great. So then we will get right into the travel fund. The first issue on the agenda here is 1147. This is the revamping the travel fund. There's been a lot of commentary here. Toby, are you up to speed? Do you want to give
Yeah, I'm going to try to do that quickly. We had a working session on this topic last week, which was great. Folks showed up, we made progress, we had discussions. Overall, and I need to get to the notes. I think there's a valid concern of us not spending a huge, not blocking on the CPC making decisions about the scoring rubric to make progress on everything else. And so as a result of that concern, I think we have a path forward that we have outlined at the bottom of this issue, in which I'm going to essentially repeat to you here and get your approval to move forward with. So Ben suggested a structure and outline for how the fund should work. Overall, there's agreement in the participants of the working session that that's a good way forward. Like not necessarily just like strictly as is, but as a direction. And that we should essentially focus on moving forward with the implementation of that, and having a discussion about the scoring rubric or how to actually assess requests separately. And also break that conversation about how to assess requests into one, which is fairly straightforward, which is collecting the kind of information we need from requesters about in order to be able to make decisions as a first step. So making decisions about what questions to ask. And as a second, potentially more contentious, not the right word, but more complicated step. Figuring out exactly, well, how do we weigh these different aspects of a request to make decisions as to which requests are funded and which requests are not? Or rather, are not, like, cannot be. Like, how do we prioritize? I don't want to make this sound as like we have a bunch of money and we grant privileges to some folks and not to others. The reality is we have a small fund and an increasing requests to it. And we can't like cover all the things, and so we have to make decisions. I've put next steps here somewhere, which at the top of the issue there is where are those tasks now? I'm looking for this. Yeah, so that's the summary of essentially what we talked about. The second step, second part of that step is essentially the group agrees to recommend that we move forward with an MVP of Ben's proposal. And the CPC sort of like needs to approve this. Thirdly, start gathering input of the CPC on the dedicated issue about the scoring rubric, which is 1154. Ben, you want to add anything? Anyone else has like comments, questions, thoughts about this?
Nothing to add, but can provide feedback if people have questions or anything for me.
Email it.
just thought I'd check. Is this like the first year ever that we are in a situation that the money might run out before the end of the year?
Yes. And
Okay.
it sort of took everyone by surprise. And sort of like Claudio sort of like raised a flag like not so long ago saying, whoa, whoa, whoa. And we're kind of like dealing with the aftermath of that. It's a little unpleasant, to be honest. I mean, especially that we're sort of like so late in the game figuring this out.
Is the situation for this year that the money is basically spent, or that it's almost gonna be spent?
It's neither. It's in the middle, i.e. we are going, if we continue on our, in the direction we're clearly going to overspend, which we can't really afford to. And so we'll have to start making unpleasant decisions fairly soon. We don't exactly know when. We're trying to figure that out. Is this a correct assessment?
I mean, do we, I guess the question is, do we have to make pleasant decisions, or does it just run out at some point? And the answer is no.
Well, I mean, that's a good, I mean, see, these are decisions that we need to make. I actually don't want us
I
to
guess
like
that's the
spend
unpleasant
time
decision.
now having this conversation. But
Yeah.
but the thing is, like, there are things later in the year that we are sort of committed to supporting. Like speaker traveling to OpenJS events, for example, or things of that nature. And we want to make sure that we don't sort of create a situation where there are unmet expectations.
Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe this is something I actually didn't know. Is speaker travel for OpenJS events also taken out of this fund?
This is like another sort of like thing that we need to discuss. Kinda a little.
Yeah, is that not part of the events budget?
No. There was some form of LF fund at some point also, like.
So to be clear, I don't think like all speakers traveling is paid for from the community fund, but I think speakers
No, it's not.
Can request travel funds from the travel fund.
I mean, essentially, the point I'm like to sort of answer your initial question, it's like not doing anything is making a decision, and that decision is essentially saying something along the lines of it's a first come first serve thing, and like whatever, which I think is kind of like not the best solution to make.
Yeah.
Not the best decision.
Could we clarify the OpenJS World and other OpenJS event speaker funding situation somewhat to indeed be coming from the event budget rather than this travel budget? Because right now it's kind of fuzzy. And I mean, having been in that situation previously, I have not been really sure about whether I should be asking for the event to fund the travel or whether I should be going for the travel budget. So clarifying that would possibly help also ultimately with, limiting the spend from that budget.
We kind of raise at the same time, Toby.
I see Claudio first, so go ahead.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Well, at least for LF events, I know a little bit, but Ben can correct me if I know. The budget has more priority for minorities and for inclusivity. So even if you're a speaker, we had cases of people not getting budget approved on the LF, budget. Like if they go to the event and apply for like travel sponsorship and they got rejected. I've seen a few cases, even for some people that I know, etc. So I I would say that probably my opinion is it depends on the event, of course, but I think on the revamp of the travel fund, we probably want to, add a check. Hey, have you checked if the event itself already supports, or have you tried to, contact the organizers of the event to seek fund from that event? And if not, proceed to our fund. I doubt that people, I mean, maybe they are, but I doubt that they would firsthand go to our fund and not put the event fund. But yeah, but it's a good point. It just yeah. Regardless of the approach, it needs clarification, like what people should do. But I think it's probably common sense. If first get to the event fund, and then if not, go to our fund. I don't know.
Yeah, or even ask your employer too before asking us. Toby?
Yeah, so this is the exact contentious debate that I don't think we should be having now, and that the working folks essentially, the working session folks essentially said, hey, let's be careful not to drown in these questions, because there's like there is not shared agreement as to what this fund should prioritize. We have talked about it in the group, and I have put in the notes, like there's a recap of like the working session in that issue. We have discussed about this, and folks have different visions for this. And we need to have this conversation, but everyone in the group also really outlined, and Ethan, who's there, and Matteo later, we said, hey folks, let's be careful, because if we go down the road of like trying to agree on this, we're not going to do all the rest of the stuff that needs to happen. I'm not saying we can just hold this off forever. What I'm saying is, let's have a working session on this topic if we want, but let's also start by like going into the issue with the scoring rubric and making sure that we agree on like what kind of information we collect, and then essentially sort of like starting to build agreement as to what this fund is for and what values that we have as as an organization. What are we trying to do with this money? Because if not, like, folks are going to agree on one call, and next call folks are going to disagree about this, because I can tell you that they're not the same people in this room right now, and the tone around this the position around this very topic was different, like very different in the last session. So I just want to point this out and make sure that we focus on moving forward with everything else that we can, and so get agreement that we want to move forward with the plan that Ben outlined, and get agreement about moving forward was like what kind of information we want to collect for having, agreement about the plan, agreement about having a scoring rubric, agreement about collecting what kind of questions we want for the scoring rubric, and then have a session dedicated on this very topic of like, okay, what do we prioritize? How do we make decisions?
So what
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And for the sake of time, I'm assuming that folks should look at the main issue that kind of lays out the framework of sorts. They should look at the scoring rubric issue and comment on that one. And then maybe next week we'll continue working on this, or do you think we need more time?
So what I think is what I would really want us to do as the CPC is make progress on deciding whether this is the route we want to take. There was a working session on this topic. The folks that showed up at the working session agreed that like moving forward with Ben's proposal is the right way to move forward. Essentially, maybe we should just briefly share Ben's proposal.
Sure.
We could just, let's just go to let me just actually share, let me share my screen.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is this the right thing? So this is the summary of the session that we had. And the reason that I want to share this rather than like Ben's proposal is this is kind of like a shorter outline of it's essentially the outline of it. And so essentially what Ben noticed is that we don't have visibility on the budget, and so we're operating in the dark. That's like a number one problem. That there is no clear process, as we're all agreeing, to approve or reject requests. And that the process is currently privacy invasive to people making requests, right? And we have agreed about this in the past. And so essentially the basis of the recommendations that Ben have made is sort of like figure out a fixed budget per event. So we have discussed this, and it's not as simple as that, right? So we'll sort of like figure this out as we move forward. A way to provide regular updates to the CPC about the status of the fund throughout the year. Move the request intake to a Google form to guarantee requester privacy instead of using pull requests. And then develop a scoring rubric to help de-bias decision-making, encode our values. So essentially, like, what is it that we want to promote in this through this fund, and also provide transparency and predictability to requesters. Ben, do you want to add anything to this?
Nope, you're good.
So as we see, there are like, so I can't see if people are putting their hands up, by the way. So as we see, like, there is work that needs to happen, like process that needs to happen and stuff that need to be implemented for this to work, right? And so essentially, Ben can't really start doing most of this work until the CPC agrees to this. And so the idea would be, let's get CPC approval to move in the direction, and then sort of like refine as we go. So I'm not sure what the best process is to actually get the CPC to go ahead with this.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we should just ask if there's any objections on this, and if not, then we should move forward on it. Because otherwise, I don't want it to stall. Maybe.
Well, I mean,
go ahead.
Sorry, what?
I was gonna say maybe even shoot an email out or something just to make sure everybody's aware of it, but I don't want it to stall. Go ahead, Toby.
I mean, could we essentially tell Ben to go ahead with this and maybe report on progress like in a couple of weeks?
That sounds good to me.
I think there's room for the CPC to approve the specifics of this as we move forward. But I think like there must be sort of like an alignment in the intent of like moving in that direction. Essentially, I think that's what we're looking for, right? It's like, is everyone sort of like okay with this direction, or are there specific concerns? And if there are specific concerns, please raise them.
Yeah, and if nobody's objecting, then great. It's seemingly we don't have specific concerns, and I think, and maybe you're saying this too, Toby, as something takes shape, it's easier for folks to be like, oh, well, maybe we need to tweak that or change this, and then we can discuss specific things, less in the abstract and more in the concrete.
All right, cool. I think that sounds good. I think that briefly, so I'm going to summarize this in the issue itself. And then I think it would be good if certain folks actually want to help Ben and sort of like help with whatever process changes that's going to imply to see if they can. Let's maybe do a work session next week on this if we don't have anything that's more important.
Yeah, of course, code of conduct is still kind of lingering, but I think we got progress going on this, so I'm very much open to doing it next week.
All right, cool. Let's do that.
Okay.
Thanks, folks.
Cool. All right, very good. So we will plan to do a working session next week, and then Ben, either in the issue or in Slack or something, feel free to reach out. there's anything we can help with in the interim, or if you have a list of things that need to happen, that you can share, we can help there too, so.
Yeah, I think I'll probably break down the work into like GitHub issues, like a tracking, and go from there
Sounds good, sounds
Yeah.
good.
without duplicating the tickets that Toby already created, as
Right.
I have a habit of doing.
Listen,
I think what would be super helpful is if you kind of outline the aspects that you feel like you want to handle, and those that you feel are sort of like for CPC folks to step in. I think that would be great.
great,
Thanks a bunch.
cool. All right, well, we got done with that issue. Do you want to talk more about cooking? No, I'm just kidding. Let's get back to the agenda, shall we?
Someone said cooking.
Just kidding. All right, cool. Next issue is also a big one. This is the summer of CPC elections. Ben, do you want to chime in here?
Yeah, I can give an update. So we closed the voting for CPC secondary director. So we have a winner. I'm not going to announce it here because I know Robin wanted to talk to both the winner and the other folks that were on the ballot prior to doing so, but that's complete, which is great. So I'll announce that as soon as I know that Robin has had those conversations. For CPC impact voting, I believe I got the last two today from Node. So those are all in, so we can close that out as well as soon as I have a moment. So all of the impact projects have nominated folks. They're all in the GitHub issue. So feel free to take a look there, and we'll make it official soon. Joe, can you provide updates on the two that you're working towards, the at-large and regular?
I'm not sure that I can.
Right before we get there, though, if I just may, on the impact ones, do we do a pull request with the name changes into the main repo?
Yeah,
and approve this? Because like the CPC has to sort of like approve those.
Yeah, it's unclear in the documentation what is supposed to happen. I believe the word that's used is the CPC ratifies it. So I reached out to Robin, and she was like, yeah, it's not really well defined. So the README file in the CPC directory has them all listed out. So I could do a PR against that and then tag in folks, and that should be enough.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Just so the CPC just approves the PR like a regular one, and I think that's good.
Yep.
Yeah, so on the other two elections, the gist is essentially that we have 4 people who have self-nominated, and we essentially have 4 open roles that are, not too much difference in the roles. And so I think I had asked you this, Ben, and we didn't really kind of close on it, so I didn't do anything about it. But maybe I can open it up to the group. 4 people, 4 roles. Do we need an election? Do we just say, here are the folks? I don't know how we want to handle that.
I mean, if the nominations are closed, then
Previously, at least, we've handled it by effectively ratifying it in some way through the CPC. We've not run an election in those cases.
Yeah, I thought so too, and that seems nice and simple as well. So I like that.
yeah. If there's no more people to be nominated, or like no one else is nominating, or the window is closed and we're 4 and 4, go for it. I think that's the best.
Cool. So I think Emily already spoke. Toby, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, these are not the same roles, though. I mean, I agree, like that we should go down the simple route, but in theory, at least, the roles are different, and the folks that would elect the people are different, right?
Yeah, so there's essentially one person has run for both, and the other folks are specific. And so maybe I just need to talk to this one person ask them if they want to.
That's funny.
From the other one and just be, the other one. So
The
maybe-
point I was trying to make was this is, in general, we have a whole bunch of roles that are specific, and that like we actually don't have enough people for those to be meaningfully specific, and we should just simplify shit. Pardon my French.
I agree. Somebody else? Anybody else? Thought I heard somebody say something. So so yeah, I will maybe work on this. I will work on it. And we'll kind of wrap that up soon in whatever fashion we are able to do so. Cool. Anything else on the election side, Ben?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. I will work on that then. Let's see here. If I move on then, the next one is the Code of Conduct Plan of Action. And I'm not sure, and maybe Toby, you have thoughts here, but I don't know if anything's been done on this lately.
So I've been pushing a bit of work on a semi-regular basis. And I don't think it's ready yet, but I think we're making progress.
Okay. Great. Yeah, and if folks look at this issue, there's a number of things here, and certainly happy to have folks jump in and help us kind of wrap this up. If you do have any sort of inclination and it's not obvious to you, feel free to reach out to me or Toby, and we'll help you help us. Cool.
I think I'm at a point where I have enough a good enough sense of the structure of the changes that folks can probably come in and do more bite-sized changes to it. I'll sort of like ping Slack whenever that's the case.
Okay. Sounds good. Cool. All right, where the heck is my agenda? Great. So I will keep moving on. Standardize on collab spaces over working groups is the next item. I was just in the standards meeting, and I think that they are fully on board with that, and wondered what they need to do to officially move forward with that. So I think they're kind of waiting on us. There is a bunch of work to be done here too. So if anybody wants to jump in and help us move that forward too, that would be great. Toby, you get your hand up?
Yeah, I just briefly want to talk to a whole bunch of process stuff that we're working on right now across different groups. This is really annoying. It's like a lot of like annoying work that we would not want to be doing. And the idea is like to simplify a lot of things that are unnecessarily complicated, because just like life happens and things get the way they are. I'm not trying to I'm not being judgmental about the existing state of things at all. Like, just to be very clear, we want to simplify stuff, and doing the work of simplifying these things will make our work like way easier in the future. It's a kind of like a little annoying and painful right now, but I think it's for the best. I just wanted to put that out there. If people think that this is painful and that's the only thing we do, it's not, just to be clear. No, really. I mean,
I know,
but it's like, it's kind of like what sometimes you really have to refactor your code base to be able to move forward. And it feels like this is kind of now.
Yeah, and we're doing this in a number of areas. We're doing this on the collab spaces and working groups. We're trying to figure out representation, the community fund, frankly, is a little bit like that too. So yeah, we are, you know, it'll be.
Yep.
We're working through it. Cool. All right, I will move on then. Where's my agenda? There it is again. Cool. All right. So the next item here is the nonviolent communication stuff, and I think we're, you know, Robin's kind of working on that. I don't imagine she has any updates, or we would have heard something there. I think it might be similar with this. This is waiting on legal info for enableability to have pseudonymity in the CLA. Yeah, so we're waiting on that as well. Requirements for projects ingesting other external projects is also waiting on legal. This has been
Yep.
around for a bit too. Sorry, somebody have a comment there? No, okay.
I was just nodding.
Yeah. Perhaps similarly, the next item, 1133, yep, also waiting on legal. Requirements for projects releasing internal projects to third-party contributor. The JSON schema charter request to review. This has been opened a month ago. I think, you know, there are conversations around this that you know, we're working through. So I don't think there's any updates on that. And then we are down to our favorite three issues here. Simplify CPC board representation, open up community board seat, and should we have a co-chair? Any progress on any of that?
Yeah. Well, we're getting really close, right? Ben reached out to look at bylaws, to share the bylaws was me, since had been working on the issue, and the final project for the bylaws are actually available from the issue directly. It's you know, really close to what we had initially sort of like proposed. Include, like, there's the tiny 80% instead of like n+1 change, which really doesn't change anything until the foundation has like more than 80 projects. By, you know, by which time, well, we can have a new conversation. And outside of that, I think it's essentially the board is going to vote on this and our charter changes that, you know, are tied to this and the open PR next like soonish, like in next meeting, like on the 18th or something. Is that?
Yep,
is that
that's
right?
correct. Yep.
And so essentially, you know, folks should just have a look at the issue and make sure that like everything's fine and that everyone's happy with it, and we can just go ahead.
Cool.
So we should have a third director soon, and a co-chair soon too, which are going to be great.
That's awesome.
And the lots of simplification and the bylaws and the charter as a result. You know, less junk, less like every director is just going to be a CPC director, no fancy weird different voting mechanisms for each of them. And I think that's going to be way simpler, way better, and most folks that can be involved in both the board and the CPC. That's also going to be great.
Sounds good.
So,
yeah,
a thumb up on the last comment in the issue would be great. I think it's here in the chat. Just put it in the chat here, and also whoa, I'm gonna put it in the doc.
Right. Well, that's exciting. That is one of the things that you know, we are trying to simplify. So the fact that there's great progress there is really exciting.
Yeah, it's one of those big open things, and that, in the group of like sort of like simplification stuff that we have. So yeah, it's great.
So when is the board meeting happening that they're gonna vote on this?
So, assuming
22nd.
we can get quorum, it should be on the 18th.
Oh, okay, because we'll be out there together. Okay.
The reason I
Um,
say should, assuming we have quorum, and I need to actually call this out today in an email, is I need to understand who's attending the board meeting in person and who won't be attending, and if we'll have enough people there to do it.
Which kind of brings a good point up. I'm looking at the calendar. In 2 weeks, our next CPC official meeting is the 19th during OpenJS World, or actually, I guess, is that during? Yeah, right. The Collab Summit's on Monday, and then we are Tuesday and Wednesday, or are we Wednesday, Thursday, and Collab Summit's on Tuesday? I can't remember.
Cloud Summit's Monday.
Monday. Okay. All right. Cool. So, but I guess my point is, should we plan to cancel that meeting or try to meet in person and there? I mean, I feel like if the event's happening, then we should cancel the meeting.
I say we cancel.
Yeah, I do too, but I'll ask in Slack and let folks chime in there. All right, Radical. Speaking of Radical, that's the end of the agenda, and I think that there's one more thing that was added there, a Radical collaboration event idea. Ethan, you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just sort of looking for some soundboard, or like if anyone hasn't seen it yet. But essentially, I was thinking about what we could do maybe more effectively with our conference money, or like having a more like impactful event. And I was thinking about like sort of like a hackathon style contribution event where we can get like major contributors all into a room together. It could be a collab summit kind of spin-off kind of thing. The idea is, rather than what we did in the past, where we get a bunch of new contributors in the room for the sake of like onboarding people into contributing to JS, which we all know had like good success, but people didn't stick around. They made their one contribution and then moved on. I would love to see us like, web streams are slow. So let's go take the 3 smartest minds that we can get in the room together and have them hack on improving the speed of web streams for a couple days. And like the motivation here is maybe companies would be super motivated to contribute to an event like this where their business needs are what's worked on, such as improving the speed of web streams, which we can show will improve the speed of native fetch. And a lot of companies, Vercel included, are like, we want faster fetch. It's one of the biggest things we get. And it's like, no one has the time to work on it. So what if we hosted an event and made that time? And there's plenty of other things that can be worked on too, from like cold start problems to more web API interoperability, security features, etc. and all. I imagine we could probably sit here and brainstorm a million different ideas of priorities to work on. So with that said, any immediate reactions? Is this something like I should pursue in planning or formalizing a little bit more, or are there any big red flags right out the gate that kind of could just squash the idea? Maybe.
So I certainly don't want to squash any ideas. I think that, there's lots of great stuff in there. This is more of like a like a data point that I don't know whether you had or not. There was a meeting, I think last week, on strategy for events of next year. I don't know if you were part of the. I couldn't make it.
So I was not given the meeting invite, but I got all of the meeting like stuffs, like the documents and the presentation, and that's what made me think of this. That's what got me thinking. I was like, wait, like this would have been a great idea to present here, but I was not on the meeting invite, unfortunately.
So I don't know what the next steps are for those meetings, but my recommendation would be to reach out to Kylie and figure out like what the plans are and like be part of those.
Cool.
Or yeah, I mean, because I think it's useful to bring those comments. Like if sort of like strategy and decisions are made right now around this stuff, and so right now is a good time to join those calls.
Awesome.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. Trying to figure that stuff out. Cool. Well, I like the idea. We have 10 minutes left, and I can double back that I heard from one of the folks that I was mentioning before, and so we essentially have the voting members sorted. If we want to share that now, if that makes sense. Ben, were you saying that that was sort of the expectation? Anyway.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep. All right. So we had regular member voting election, voting member election, and at-large voting member election. For regular member voting members, the folks who will represent the regular members will be Yagiz. I don't know if I've ever said his last name out loud. Nazipoli. And Michael Dawson.
That's right.
Great. And then at-large voting members will be Toby Langle and Jordan Harban. Where's
You
Congratulations.
screwed my last name up.
Yeah, did I say it? Did I
Just
say it wrong?
say, which is funny.
Yeah. How do you say it?
The two ways, you just picked the only possibly wrong one, which is funny. That either you say it the French way, like which is Langel, or you say it the English way, which is Langel or something like this.
Yeah.
But you went for the German vibe, and like in Switzerland, like mixing up French people with German people is potentially contentious.
I tried to say it fast, so I just, I'm just like,
Yeah, nice try. It didn't work. It was the easiest one to get. Come on.
Yeah, I know. I kind of choked on that one. Cool. Congratulations, everybody. We will update the issues and the readmes and probably an email and whatnot. So I'm glad that that worked out nice and smoothly, and with great folks in good positions. So I'm happy. Great. Anything else we want to chat about before we?
On my part about that, very happy to be basically stepping back from this at a time when we do actually have full people standing in for all of these positions.
Yeah, but also I'm happy to see you here, Emily. So don't step back too far.
This, and also thank you for the work that you did.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you, Emily. And dinner looks amazing. You'll have to post a photo of the completed project you're working on in Slack later.
It's a veggie chili. It's not going to end up looking very pretty.
That's funny.
Boy.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, with that, I will let you all go. We'll do the working session next week on, continuing the community fund stuff. And again, if folks can help out with that or the code of conduct work, or I feel like there's another one that we have some progress to be made on, please don't hesitate to jump in and help out. Much appreciated.
Lab space stuff is the
Yeah,
last
the lab
one you're
space,
thinking
thank
about.
you. Yeah. So cool. Appreciate everyone and see you really soon. Adios.
Thanks, Aaron.
Here,
Hasta la
folks.
vista.
Hasta. Oh, wait. I was waiting.